Hey you guys, it is me, Olga Tibiri, and today is day 2. Don't mind me as I let my hair down. I am home. I'm actually recording this pretty late night. So yes, I promised that I would come in here and that I would do a video a day because it's something that I'm very passionate about. This is part 2 of my 5-part series. Talking about my journey with mental health um, and also my thoughts on there. So for those of you that don't know me, my name is Olga, aka Olga Tibiri. That is the nickname that I go by. I am a mother, a friend, a free spirit, a loving soul, and I know how connected I am to everybody and everything here on this earth. And so the purpose of me doing these videos is to shed some light for some people on, issues with mental health. And today is September 10th. Today happens to be International Suicide Prevention Day. And I'm also a suicide survivor. So I speak from experience. I speak from personally having gone through these things. And the reason why I wanted to do this is, like I said, to shed some light for some people, to help people know that they're not by themselves, that there is more after, being struck with depression. There's more life to live, there's more to do, and we don't have to stay stuck in one mode. So my video cut off, the part 1 video cut off yesterday, me talking about children and how it's so important. And I just wanted to finish this thought. It's so important what we do and say and how we treat our children. I heard somewhere that the tone in which you speak to your children is a tone in which they will speak to themselves. And if we take a step back and we start looking at the way that we speak to ourselves, whether it's in a positive light, negative light, or maybe it's just a extra tough love motivation kind of light, whatever it is, you can probably trace it back to those people who were in charge of taking care of you. Now, this doesn't always have to be the parents per se. It can be anybody who's been influential in a child's upbringing. I've learned that the most formative years are from ages 0 to 6 years. And what you do in these first 6 years is so crucial and important for children's development. So, this doesn't mean that, like, let's say, you were in a bad place when you had your children, and maybe you had your children very young, or you were just stuck in a situation where it was a very toxic home for the child and a lot of things went on. It's not like all hope is lost. It's just you have to make sure that you are supporting this child. Like I mentioned in the last video, like I speak from experience. I don't think that family members intentionally do things to cause trauma or harm. With that being their go-to. I think many times people try to act from a place of either love, and sometimes it's not love, sometimes it's fear. Most of the time it's fear. But they may be using it as the guise of love, or they may be using it as the guise of authority, where what they say goes, and because you're a child, it's whatever, and you've got to listen to them and what have you. But I experienced trauma in my childhood from my loved ones, and I don't think that they were aware of it. I think that, Simple things, just like telling your child that they are ugly when they cry, or telling your niece or that, you know, oh my God, you're crying, you're so ugly, look at you, you're so ugly, you're crying. Like, you know, you're trying to get them to stop crying, but you're teaching them that beauty is the biggest standard. And now the child thinks that they're ugly. So not only are they ugly, but that when they cry, they're ugly, because children internalize everything. So they're going to use it and repeat it in other places. And now you have a child that's in full-on anxiety mode because their feelings and their needs are not being addressed. You know, how differently would things have turned out for that child? How differently would things have turned out for me if, instead of making fun of me while I was crying, you know, the adults around me, again, it wasn't always my parents, the adults around me, or even some of the older, you know, cousins around me, like, if they would have come up to me and said, hey, it's okay, you have feelings, it's okay to feel upset, it's not okay to be disrespectful, you know, like, how different would that have been? Would we have been able to have a conversation about it? Would I have learned a lot about it? And I'm not saying that those things didn't teach me anything when I was younger, and immediately I learned that I was ugly. But I think that later on in life now, I realized that things that I did after that became coping mechanisms and survival tactics that, unfortunately, after a while, either they don't work, or they never worked from the beginning, or they're hella toxic. So as an adult, and thinking about, you know, the children in your life, think about the kind of traumas that you went through as a child. And you may not even think that it's a trauma. You probably have passed off a lot of the stuff, and you may even be looking at me like, wow, Olga, you know, you're such a punk, like, you couldn't just cry. And I'm just like, understand, it goes a lot deeper than this, but this is why there's therapy. And I started seeing a therapist, I started seeing school counselors when I was 8 years old. I remember, and some of them were great and some of them were not so great, but I will always advocate for people changing the way that they speak to children. Think about your past. Is there anything in your past that left a mark on you? Maybe somebody said something to you. Maybe somebody, maybe it wasn't even what they said. Maybe it's the way that they reacted to something that you did. And you know that it wasn't that big of a deal, but maybe they were in a mood or something happened. You were left with an impression from that moment. And from that moment, what that impression told you is, don't ever behave like this again. Otherwise, you're going to have this really unpleasant feeling. And so that teaches children to shut themselves down and close off. And the last thing you want is for your children not to be able to speak to you about things. You know, and start to feel like their feelings are not validated, and start to feel like they don't have anybody to talk to. This is the beginning of how somebody starts to feel isolated. You know, if you don't tend to the child's emotional reactions and give them some sort of either positive reinforcement, acknowledgement, then you're not addressing the fact that the child may be actually just really tired, or they may be upset about something else. You might have missed something really important that that child had to tell you. As a lot of times, even if children act out or have an outburst or things like that, that comes from either feeling a certain way, tired, hungry, and this is the same for adults. Like, we all go through this. Or it could also be due to, you know, something else that's going on, and they're acting out. You know, something's going on at home, and it's bothering them, but they don't know how to express it, so they act out instead, or they have outbursts because they don't know where to put their feelings. You know, these are usually signs that there's something deeper going on. So don't always chalk it up to behavior issues. Newsflash. Usually kids with behavioral issues, quote unquote, are suffering from some sort of trauma, anxiety. They may be depressed, or they may just have like tons of anxiety, which is not good, and it will lead to depression if it goes unchecked. Or may lead, sorry. So think about it. Think about it as an adult. What kind of world do you want to bring forth? What kind of future you want to raise? And how compassionate do you wish somebody would have been with you when you were younger? Think about that, reflect on that, and then definitely pay that forward. Okay. So that finishes my thought from last night. Today I want to do something a little bit different. And I was thinking that one of the things that I like to talk about today is how difficult it can be to find the right kind of help, and how it actually takes a lot of time. Because something that scares off a lot of people is to get help is that they feel like somebody's going to lock them away, because their feelings may be so intense for them that they don't know how to, at the moment they may not know how to control their feelings, and it's run away from them. This is exactly how I used to feel. I used to feel like I was crazy. I was like, you know, I'm here, like I have these thoughts and they keep repeating in my head, and it's like a runaway train, and I can't get anywhere, and it's like a spiral, a downward spiral of negative self-talk, and me repeating things to myself that just didn't make a lot of sense rationally, but because I was already in a funk, it just persisted and it continued. And so I remember when I was 8 years old, I did see a counselor in school, and my parents took me to go see a therapist, but I wouldn't speak at the therapist's office. I didn't want to say anything, so they kind of left it at that. And then on and off, I had seen counselors in school, and I think it wasn't until when I was 17 that I had that attempt, that I was hospitalized. I was put into the ER. From the ER, I was admitted into the psych ward, and I was in the psych ward for a little over a week. From the psych ward, they set me up with outpatient services. So if you're going through a moment of crisis where you feel like you may hurt yourself, or you may hurt somebody else, and you don't feel safe, you can go to your nearest ER. Especially here in New York, and I know in the States, like, they have to attend to you. Like, if you're here in New York, they have to attend to you, and it's a safe space, even if you just need to be there for the night. But they will help you to determine if you might need to be there a little bit longer, but it doesn't mean that you're going to be locked away forever. So after about a week or so, they set me up with outpatient services. I was to see a psychologist, and a psychiatrist, and each one of them is a little bit different, because the psychologist does more of the talk therapy, the psychiatrist does the I might have screwed that up. One of them does the talk therapy, the other one prescribes the medication. I'm gonna figure that out. I will figure that out for you guys. Yeah, I should know this by now, but so they set me up with that. The first psychiatrist, the first psychiatrist that I saw, the first therapist, I did not like her. There was nothing that clicked with her. She happened to be very boring for me, And I guess that at 17 you can also experience that, you know, because that's the age where you're very rebellious. You've got the teenager hormones in you, and you feel like you don't want to have to deal with anybody or anything. And if they don't know how to come correct, then you're not having it. Like, that was pretty much my attitude. I'm not having it. She's whack. That's pretty much what I said to myself. She's whack. Whatever. I'm not going. And I stopped going. I stopped going on, but I would continue to see the psychologist for the medications. Now, they prescribed me medications, but I didn't take them because I have seen my family members take medications for many years, and a lot of the medications have done damage, sustained damage, cumulative damage over the years. And so I'm a little wary of it. This does not mean that I am against medications. Medications can be really great. I think that with the proper diagnosis, the proper care, and the proper support, you can find that medications can be very helpful if they're necessary, and if you're being supervised by a team, meaning that you'll be taking them and you'll be having regular visits with your doctors. So they set me up with another psychiatrist, and I loved her. I loved her. She was super awesome. I actually stayed with her all the way through, because it was the children's clinic. But I was pregnant at 18, and I ended up staying through with her till I was 19. Because I gave birth, and the next month I turned 19, and then I aged out of the clinic. But with her, I had a wonderful relationship, and I really started to see some growth and progress there. I felt a lot better for a long time, and that was pretty cool. But then they set me up with somebody else. And the next person that I saw, I also didn't like very much. She was whack too. So I asked them to switch me up to somebody else. I saw another gentleman. I just, I wasn't being very responsive to his messaging, but he was also very, I don't know, he was kind of arrogant. I just didn't like him. So I didn't see a therapist for a very long time. And then a few years back, probably before I started my health journey, or when I was actually around the time that I was starting it, my fitness journey back in 2015, it had been years since I had seen a therapist, and I had spoken to people on and off, and I had my friends, but I knew that I needed to speak to somebody because I was experiencing lots of anger, things like getting on the train and just people bumping into me would set me off. Like, I'm 5'1". I'm really little. I have no business yelling at people that are pretty much twice my size. But I wouldn't care because that's how, upset I was at the world and mad at everything. And I knew that that wasn't normal because that's not me. That's not who I am. I'm not usually angry. I'm not usually upset. And when I can remember who I am really, really, I'm a happy person. I'm joyous. I live to bring life to others. And when I know that I feel angry, I'm upset for a sustained period of time, that means that there's something to it. So I started seeing this therapist at the Department of Health and Mental Hygiene. They had a free service there here in New York, and it was 12 sessions. And in those 12 sessions, this was a little bit more pointed because I knew that it was 12 sessions, so we started with a goal and we ended with a goal. So it wasn't more just general working out of things, but it was a little bit of doing that. And that was super helpful. That was really great. And I really got to learn more about myself in that time. And because it was only 12 sessions, unfortunately, I couldn't stay with her. And she did help me to look for other places. After that, she gave me referral sheets for a lot of other clinics. I did sign up with another clinic shortly afterwards, but because it was so far and the intake process was so long, because unfortunately I was not in a crisis mode, it kind of deterred me, and I stopped seeing a therapist at that time. So there was another therapist that I saw as well while I was working at the bank, but it was like there was just no chemistry. So it takes a while. Sometimes you find these people and they are great. Sometimes you find these people and it was just good to get it off your, get it off your chest. One thing that I will say is that when seeking help, you have to be honest. You have to be absolutely 100% honest. And you have to say exactly what's going on. Otherwise, there's no way that somebody can help you. And don't think that what you've got going on is the weirdest or the worst that they have heard, because trust me, shit gets weird. You know what I'm saying? Like, I can tell you in my own head, shit gets weird. So I can imagine in somebody else's head what they may be going through, and with different symptoms. At this point right now, I am actually searching for another therapist to speak to. Recently I've been having a lot of bouts of anxiety, and a lot of things have been coming back up. And I've been doing a lot of spiritual work on myself, which I feel has truly helped me to heal a lot of things, and is continuing to bring up things for me to heal. And I recognize that at this point in time, I feel like I need additional support that's not my friends, not somebody that I know, somebody outside of the circle of everything, and somebody who can give me like a different perspective. So I'm seeking to find another therapist at this time, because it's helpful, even if it's just talk therapy, like that can be super helpful. But I know that sometimes maybe the first person I speak to might not be the one for me. I might need to see 2 or 3 people before I find the one for me. But I am determined to find somebody, because I know how much that has benefited me. How much better I feel after being able to work out some things, and having somebody who's professionally trained, who can point out things and let me know that what I'm feeling is absolutely normal and doesn't fall in the realm of something that actually even needs to be medicated. It's just for a period I might be going through some shit, and that's okay. And that's totally fine. So I'm fully aware, and I know this, and I hope that with today's video I was able to shed some light on that for you guys. So for anybody who is looking for a therapist or a psychiatrist, or you're looking for some help, it takes time. There are many resources online. I mean, I was doing Google searches before starting this project here, and I found tons of resources out there. So do yourself a favor, go ahead and check them out. And if you need help with it, reach out to me, let me know. I'll be more than happy to share whatever information I have, or help you to find something for yourself in your area, and then maybe that could be a good step. Sometimes you just need to talk, and this is why therapy is important, because sometimes you just need to let it out with somebody that doesn't know you. So let me know if you need some assistance with that. I'd be more than happy to help at least point you in the right direction. For the people who are watching, and thank you so much for watching, if you're not a person who suffers from mental health issues, but you want to be more informed, and you came here because you wanted to gain some insight for yourself, recognize that for people who are going through any mental health issues, especially when suffering with depression and anxiety and suicidal thoughts, that it's very difficult. It can be very embarrassing to admit. It it's so stigmatized that you may, people don't want to talk about it. So just the best kind of support that you can do or be for a person who is suffering is just to be there with them. And if they need to talk and they would like to talk to you, allow them to talk. Don't give them any advice, just listen. If they, if they sound like they're really going through a hard time and it sounds like they may cause harm to themselves, or to others, depending on the situation where you are, you may be legally responsible to contact 911 and to have them checked in. But if that's not the case, I would at least highly encourage you to encourage them to do so. And if you can, and if you're willing, take them to the ER if they are in a crisis mode, because it's important to get things done as soon as possible. So that being said, thank you guys so much for listening to this part of my journey. Thank you so much for being here with me. I really do appreciate the fact that people are reaching out and that they feel so moved by me just sharing my story. I think that the more that we talk about this stuff, the more we demystify it, and the more, and the less that we have to cloak it, Let's just get it out there and let's get people help. Today, again, September 10th is International Suicide Prevention Day. And if I can help at least one person recognize that there's something else out there, then that would, then what I have been brought here to do has been done, and I just hope that somebody sees this and that they know that they're not alone. And from my other folks, my allies, right, I just hope that you guys can have a little bit more compassion and recognize that this is hard. This is really hard. But we appreciate all of your support. Thank you all for watching. You all have a wonderful night.